Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World release, but not just any release. We have the very much so anticipated Hammond Collection Allosaurus. And you can see the packaging is pretty much as you would expect it to be, pretty much like your standard packaging for the Hammond Collection. You have a nice shot of the figure right there, the species name, of course the window area where we can see the figure a little bit, and then the Hammond Collection logo up there. On the side, the Hammond Collection. If we turn it around to the other side, again a nice shot of the Allosaurus, looking like it's got some pretty impressive neck articulation, though they have fooled us before with, different dinosaurs having that kind of articulation and not actually having it, like the Ceratosaurus. And then you have a shot here on the back of the box which shows the Allosaurus off in all its glory, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And then down here we also actually have like an advertisement for Atrociraptor Ghost, the baby Triceratops, and Scutosaurus. So very nice timing to actually release that, because again they just unveiled the Triceratops officially, I guess, with the pre-order this previous Wednesday. And again, this releases today. So let's go ahead, pop the box open, and check it out. So here is our Allosaurus now that it is assembled. Let's see if we can get it to stand. Well, I don't think it's going to stay standing if I keep it in that position. Bring the legs forward just a hair. And we've kind of got it standing. We'll readjust the camera now. And there we go. There is our Allosaurus. Finally, after all of these months waiting for it to release, we now have a chance to really take a look at it. And I feel like it looks pretty good. The only thing that kind of is a little confusing to me is it almost, it's kind of hard to explain. It doesn't look like an adult to me. And again, that might just be the way I'm looking at it and kind of seeing the overall look and like the proportions and stuff kind of makes it feel like it's almost like a juvenile heading toward adulthood, which is strange, if that makes any sense. I don't know, there's just something about it that looks a little different compared to the design that we saw in like Dominion and Chaos Theory. It just looks younger to me. But it still does look really good, and one thing that is a plus is it looks a lot nicer here than I think some of the prototype images had led me to believe. Like the coloration in the face specifically looks pretty bad on some of the images that were, the stock images on Target's website, whereas here in person I feel like the paintwork on the face actually does look quite a bit better. So let's go ahead, jump to a closer look, and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Allosaurus, you can see it looks pretty good. Definitely, for the most part, captures the likeness of the Allosaurus from Jurassic World. The skin texture here on the face looks pretty decent. You do have, again, fairly vibrant detail. We've got a nice dark blue for the majority of the face. Then you have this lighter tone, kind of like a tan, that's dry brushed over. You can also see a little bit of it there on the lower jaw. And you have some red running through the palate, heading back there toward the eye area. The crests are also pretty decently sculpted and again sport some fairly nice fine detail. We can see the nostrils right there. The eyes, I think, look better for sure than some of the previously released theropod eyes, but they still don't look great. From looking at it from a few different angles, I can kind of make out the pupil, and it doesn't get quite as lost as, say the T-Rex, but it does still get lost, and in certain angles, and I would say actually most angles as far as the way I'm looking at it right now, it's not as obvious as it should be. We do, of course, have an articulated jaw, if I can get it open. There we go. You can see both the upper and lower jaws articulate and open. We also have those newer teeth from Mattel, which are a lot softer, which you can see them flexing, but that also helps to give us a much sharper look for the teeth, which again, these new and improved teeth on these figures are fantastic compared to the older, chunkier teeth that we had on Mattel releases. We can see the skin there stretching on the inside of the mouth once you open the mouth. You can also see the tongue sculpted out very nicely in there, very nicely textured. And again, some decent detail on the inside of the mouth on the upper side. I would love to see Mattel actually start to incorporate articulated tongues on these figures. Like this figure, size-wise, is definitely the type of size that I feel like an articulated tongue would work pretty well with. And for some reason they don't do that, but they have with, some of the other figures like the T-Rex. The detail up here on the top of the head also looks pretty decent. As you begin to move down into the neck of the Allosaurus, you start to pick up those ridges moving along the back of the neck, and they have a nice sharp look to them, but are also, again, a nice soft material. They're kind of flexible, which is good because, again, it helps to make them look like they are kind of genuinely sharp, or at least sharper than you would normally see. and still looking really high quality without being any kind of like a danger to kids if they happen to grab one of these. But you can see we have that darker blue moving down along the back of the neck. Then you've got like this sort of tan coloration following down through the center. Then you've got another area of the blue following down, and then that kind of like tan or like light brown tone moving along the underside of the neck and throat. We can see the detail looks pretty decent down here as well. And again, you've got some nice looking scale detail here on the side of the neck. As you move up higher, you do start to pick up all of those kind of, scoots and that kind of armored sort of a look for the back of the Allosaurus, which is, again, the way you see it in Jurassic World. You do, of course, have another spot of articulation right here, which can go up and down very nicely. It can also, because you have another spot right here, turn left. And let me go ahead and move this back just a little bit to see if we can capture that turning its head sideways look. So not really, not nearly as sharp as we saw on the packaging. Like, you can get it there, mostly if you move this bottom part of the neck. You can get it into a nice, looking to the side sort of a stance, but I feel like it's nowhere near as sharp of a turn as they lead you to believe on the packaging. But you can, of course, swivel these areas as well, which helps to kind of give it, like that curious look and stuff if you want to go that route. But overall, the articulation of the neck is pretty smooth, and you can, of course, go up and down in this area as well, really nicely, actually. And then obviously left and right, which can go pretty far, and then swivel like I had just mentioned. But as you begin to move down into the body, you start to see this tone kind of disappear. It doesn't even disappear smoothly. It's very abrupt because we basically just have that dark blue showing up then. But the scale detail looks really quite nice in that area. We continue to have all of those armored scoots and ridges and stuff moving along the back of the Allosaurus. We do have that area where they kind of pick up again in size right here, but they are still that nice soft, flexible, kind of like a rubber, which continues to allow them to look quite nice and again, a lot more realistic. As you move down into the arm of the Allosaurus, we can see the musculature is very nicely done. We can also see the elbow, and then leading down into the hands, you can see the scoots moving down the fingers. Look really good. You've got kind of like a speckling here through the course of the figure. You will see it even up here into the body. And then we can see the nails painted on the hands, which is awesome. They're painted with... it looks like a dark gray, I would say. But as far as the articulation goes, you can see forward and back and out away from the body. Pretty much the standard. You also have elbow articulation, forward and back. And that can also swivel. And then you have wrist articulation, which I'm going to have to hold the arm, I think, to show this off. There you go. Up and down. And can also swivel, which is nice because then you can make sure your wrists are not pronated. Also, we have a gloss coat on the nails, which I failed to mention a moment ago. But as you move down into the stomach region of the Allosaurus, you can see the skin texture continues to look absolutely gorgeous. You have really high quality skin detail. You also have all sorts of speckles again showing up down there. Very smooth transition up to the blue here in the back of the body. As you move back into the leg, you can see the muscle definition is definitely very nicely defined, moving down both the thigh and calf. You can see the kneecap itself very nicely shown off in the sculpt. We have more of that dark blue leading down, kind of striping back into the thigh, but it disappears before you reach the knee, and then you basically just have that light tone as you move down. But the skin texture continues to look really nice on the figure, very vibrant. Moving down into the foot sculpt, you can see some scoots moving down the toes. That looks really good as well. You do have the nails again painted, just like we saw up there on the hand. Same tone of color, nice gloss coat added. But no Dewclaw paint, as always. As far as the articulation in this area, of course, it's just forward and back, pretty much your standard. You can also come out away from the body just a little bit. You also have knee articulation, forward and back, and that can swivel. And then as you move down, you've got two more areas of articulation. You can go forward and back right here, and then also can swivel. And then you've got, I almost dropped it, just a little bit more articulation right here, basically forward and back, and then again can also swivel. So very nice articulation through the legs of our Allosaurus. As you move back up, you can see again the dark blue kind of continues to follow along the back of the body. the lighter tone following along that kind of like light tan or brown following along the lower part of the body. The skin texture continues to look really, really nice. I feel like this is an absolute must-have when it comes to a repaint. I'm definitely going to be repainting one of these. But as you move out into the tail, you again have a nice spot of articulation right here, which can kind of go up. It doesn't really go up any higher than that, which is strange because usually the Mattel figures have a lot of articulation in this spot. But you can go down a little bit and then left and right. But there's honestly not much movability there, not much mobility. The good thing, though, is it is a wire tail, so you can flex and bend that pretty much any way you want, which does help, again, when it comes to posability, but also makes up for the lack of movement right there in that spot. But as you move along the tail, you can see the coloration looks a little bit different out here, because once you reach the rubber tail, you can see now a more kind of glossy look to the paintwork compared to the body. So it kind of stands out a little bit more, like, I don't know if I'd say in a good way. It's definitely quite obvious in person that the coloration is a little bit different in general. Again, just the way it's kind of sitting on the figure looks kind of shiny and satiny. But as you move out, you continue to have that armored look here to the back of the body. Again, we still have those, scoots and ridges moving along the tail. And as you lead out, that blue coloration does taper off as you lead toward the tip of the tail. And the detailing on the underside looks pretty good. You've got more of those speckles and everything here moving along the underside of the Allosaurus as you follow along. The skin texture, again, looks really nice. I love the skin wrinkles and stuff down here on the underside of the body. That's a very nice touch on the part of Mattel. And of course, once we turn it around, you're going to see pretty much the same thing on both sides. We don't have like the blind eye or anything for this, but of course you could customize it to have that if you wanted. I will say the dry brushing here in the face doesn't look the smoothest. It definitely, like on this side, I think looks a little more, I don't know if I'd say sloppy, but obviously not body color. But it doesn't look terrible, it just could look better. And then as you move down again, it's going to look pretty much the same considering it is a fully posable figure. You're not going to see much difference from one side to the other when it comes to a figure like this. And I think as a whole, it's definitely a very nice Hammond collection release, and it's really cool to finally have the Allosaurus in our hands. One thing that is really good for this figure is it has a pretty massive tail. Like, the tail's really quite long, which honestly looks really good on the figure. But as far as a length goes, and that tail is going to be the majority of it, you are looking at about 20 3/4 inches, or right around 53 centimeters in length, and then in height. This, of course, would vary depending on the way you pose it. Right here, where it's standing, it's about 7 inches or around 18 centimeters. But you could, of course, pose it up higher, like a lot higher. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect A human being next to our Allosaurus. I think maybe the Colovosaurus actually should be like back here where you can get a better idea. It was a little bit too further forward to kind of give you a good idea of the size. But you can see the Allosaurus definitely has a nice size to it, but obviously isn't one of the largest figures in the line. Well, I mean, I guess technically. But when it comes to the larger figures, I think of like the Giganotosaurus, the T-Rex, the Brachiosaurus. Those figures are huge, whereas this seems to be in kind of a similar size range to the Carnotaurus. We've also got a size comparison next to your standard Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Allosaurus. Then for some Hammond collection comparisons, here is the Pachycephalosaurus next to the Allosaurus. We've also got the Gallimimus stepping in here next to our Allosaurus. And then when we start to head upward in size range, here is the Ceratosaurus next to the Allosaurus. As you can see, we're starting to get closer to the size range of the Allosaurus, but still not there. Then once we bring in the Carnotaurus, you can definitely see how similar in size the Carnotaurus is to the Allosaurus. Just the Allosaurus doesn't quite have the body mass or bulkiness that the Carnotaurus does, whereas the Allosaurus is a lot more slim and slender overall compared to what we have with the Carnotaurus. But when it comes to a size, they're very similar, with the Allosaurus obviously being quite a bit longer since it does have a pretty massively long tail. Then, since we don't have a adult in the Hammond collection so far, this is the only Stegosaurus we have in the Hammond collection at this point. You can see again that the dinner for our Allosaurus isn't very big. We've also got a comparison with the Hammond collection Tyrannosaurus that is currently biting the face off of the Allosaurus, but obviously you can see the size difference here is gigantic. The T-Rex is a lot larger. And since we don't have a Hammond Collection Stegosaurus, here is a comparison with your standard Mattel Stegosaurus next to the Allosaurus, again in the Hammond Collection line. And why the heck not? Because I pulled the Kenner Stegosaurus out to get to the Mattel Stegosaurus. I figured I'd bring that one in for a comparison as well. And I'm not going to bring in a bunch of different Mattel Allosaurus comparisons or anything like that. We can very clearly tell this is a lot larger than your standard Mattel Allosaurus. Actually, that's not even true. Technically, the extreme damage version would be probably very similar in size to this, but more bulky. But I really wanted to bring this Allosaurus in because this Allosaurus, I feel like, is a strong amount of the inspiration for the sculpt of the Allosaurus from Jurassic World, so I felt like it would be just really cool to see these two figures next to each other. We also have a size comparison next to the Beasts of the Mesozoic Allosaurus, which you can see these two are very similar in size. I would honestly say they're pretty much the same size, length and everything. Just a little more size on the head of the Beasts of the Mesozoic version, but they are extremely similar in size overall. And then for one final comparison, we have the figure that I know many people wanted to see, and I currently am just holding it with my hand because I didn't bring the stand out with it, but we have the Jurassic Justin, aka Caldera Collectibles version of the Allosaurus next to the Hammond Collection version, and as you can see, it is gigantic next to the Hammond Collection version. So the Caldera Collectibles version, if I just bring it in here, above the Hammond Collection version, you can see it is a whole lot larger than our Hammond Collection Allosaurus. I may make an actual video comparing these two further because I know there were a lot of people interested in that, but it's still pretty darn cool to see the two of them next to each other. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Hammond Collection Allosaurus is definitely a nice figure. I won't say it's one of my favorites from the line. The Carnotaurus, I think at this point, is still taking the cake on that one, but it's definitely a fairly decent looking version of the Allosaurus. The only thing I think that's a little confusing, and I may just be wrong, I may not be familiar enough with the design of the Allosaurus, I feel like the head sculpt is a little bit too small for some reason. It just seems a good bit smaller than it should be, but, you know, maybe I just need to go back and take a look at the actual original Allosaurus from Jurassic World to kind of get a better feel for how this one should look, but it looks small to me. But outside of that, the sculpt is really well done. It has a lot of very nice fine detail throughout, really vibrant fine detail. It's definitely about as highly detailed as any other Mattel dinosaur you usually see. It's also got some okay paintwork. The paintwork isn't anything incredible. It's not super flashy. It's definitely not going to blow your mind, and some areas like the dry brushing in the face looks a little off to me, but for the most part the paint apps are pretty decently done. You do have a ton of articulation, and although of course the neck articulation isn't quite as nice as you see on the box, it still has some pretty smooth articulation that works quite nicely, definitely allows you to get it into many different poses. I love the new proportions on these Hammond Collection figures as well. They just look so much better than they used to, and that nice long tail looks awesome. But overall, it is definitely a really cool release, and you can order this right now on Target.com unless it's sold out since I began this review, or of course pick it up in store. I snagged mine in store this morning because my pre-order just took way too long to get out, so I just went ahead and grabbed it at the store. So I will include a link in the description to where you can grab this from Target, so make sure you do that, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.